This is the GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. This is flyer number 9-2, entitled Scientizing the Jewish bankster Satanists to Liberate Men. Description. This flyer suggests that the horrors awaiting American men when the dollar crashes, caused by the Jewish bankster Satanists, may be the price that men pay to liberate themselves from menunfair gender laws created by these Jewish banksters. The most effective way to remove the Jewish banksters' Satanist beliefs is with science, discrediting them. Without these underlying beliefs, Jewish bankster Satanists will disappear and men will be liberated. The flyer itself. Scientizing the Jewish bankster Satanists to liberate men. I'm holding my breath, waiting for the dollar to crash, as it must in the next few months or few years. The world is deserting the dollar as the international reserve currency. When that happens, given that the US has sent most of its manufacturing capacity to China, the US will only be able to import in value what it can export in value, which will not be much, so standards of living will fall to third world levels. There are more guns in the US than people, so I'm expecting very angry Americans will then rise up to try to remove the Jewish banksters who planned this crash, who've been preparing for it with their 3 billion hollow-tip bullets designed for killing, ripping out any body part the bullet hits. The millions of 4-body plastic coffins, the militarization of the police force, the 800 FEMA concentration camps in the US, the police state executive orders that Obama has been signing, that he was selected and groomed to do by the Jewish banksters, the suburban tanks whose photos on the internet, lines and lines of them, thousands of them, waiting to be used to massacre Americans in their millions when the time comes, are the most horrifying and disturbing I have seen on the internet. When the Jewish banksters caused the Russian Revolution, which wasn't Russian at all, it was a Jewish communist putsch, financed by Schiff, the New York Jewish bankster, with $20 million of his own money. They went on to massacre 66 million white Christian Russians, says Solzhenitsyn, the famous author of the Gulag Archipelago and Nobel Prize winner for literature, highly respected. These Jewish banksters hate the Goy. They are Satanists. They are Shabbatean Frankists who taught that good and evil are both the works of the Jewish God, and that the Jewish Messiah will come to earth only when people are either wholly good or wholly evil. The Frankists argue that it's easier for humans to be wholly evil than wholly good. So to hasten the coming of the Jewish Messiah, Shabbatean Frankists should commit the most evil deeds they could, reversing the 10 Commandments of the Torah. Thus they became Satanists, using their superior intelligence to take over control of the issuance of money in most countries of the world, which gave them tremendous power, spearheaded largely by the Rothschilds, with their henchmen, the Rockefellers, the Schifts, the Warburgs, etc. They are religious. They believe what Jacob Frank said. The Illuminati founder, Weishaupt, Jacob Frank, and Amschel Rothschild were all living in Frankfurt, Germany, at the same time. Frank got Rothschild to fund him and his dream, that is, to hasten the coming of the Jewish Messiah by committing massive evil, so that the Jewish Messiah could rule the world from Jerusalem, and then to, in capitals, wipe out all the Goy. That is a Jewish word for non-Jews, that is 99.8% of the world population. This may sound crazy and insane to most people, so you'll need to read the Talmud to see what it is that religious Jews believe. So, these Jewish bankster Satanists are extremely dangerous. They hate the Goy. Hating the Goy is part of their religion, so they are happiest when they have caused world wars, causing millions of Goy to massacre each other and making huge profits from government loans to pay for the wars. It looks as though these Jewish bankster Satanists have in mind for the US which is soon to crash, is what they did to Russia, slaughtering tens of millions of them in the 1920s and 1930s under the Jewish Stalin, whose Georgian dialect name means son of a Jew. Or the Jew Roosevelt, who engineered the entry of the US into World War II by cutting off the oil supply to the Japanese and placing the US fleet within bombing distance of Japan in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The Jew Churchill, whose mother was Jewish, was bribed by the Rothschilds via their agent, the CEO of Shell, to go to war with Hitler, after the Rothschilds and their cronies got Russian communists to massacre 50,000 Polish Germans, which forced Hitler, quarter Jewish probably, to invade Poland to stop the massacres. These Jewish bankster Satanists hate us. They hate the Goy. So all these preparations they are making for the dollar collapse looks as though they're preparing to do for the US what they did to Russia and Eastern Europe. In 1941, Stalin had amassed a 6 million Russian soldier army to invade Europe. Most people don't know this. Pay attention to what I'm about to say, because it could blow your mind. If Hitler had not invaded Russia 2 weeks before the Stalin invasion was planned to start, Western Europe would have suffered the same fate at the hands of these Jewish Satanist communists. A Jewish doctrine, Marx, came from a long line of rabbi ancestors. But Hitler was no saint, even though he saved Western Europe from Stalin, because Hitler accepted money from Jewish banksters early in his career, and again in 1933 when his party was broke after the elections. So I fear that millions of Americans are about to be massacred by these Jewish bankster Satanists. All the evidence points that way. These Jewish Satanists have been dividing and conquering the Goy for many centuries. One of their most effective tactics along these lines was their recent promotion of feminism and, I strongly suspect, their behind-the-scenes bribing of the gender politicians to pass new divorce laws that the feminists were pushing for, that financially massacre men, losing their kids, their house, paying child support and alimony. So I'm cynical that MGTOW/Masculist will be able to get the gender politicians to create menunfair gender laws, in brackets, reforming the divorce laws, bringing in the paternity rejection right, etc., until the Jewish bankster Satanists and their cronies are removed. So my attention lately has been concentrated on how to remove these Jewish bankster Satanist vermin, these greatest of all criminals against humanity in all of history, indirectly killing over 200 million people in the 20th century with their 2 world wars, their communist purges, their economic depressions, their constant modern wars, etc. I ask myself, what is the most effective tool that the Goy had to remove these criminals against humanity so that men can be liberated? I think the most effective tool we have is science. In the US, 80% of Jews marry non-Jews. This is a very important phenomenon because it means that within a century there'll be almost no more Jews, because Jewish genes will have been diluted to extinction within the much larger general US Goy population. The rabbis have feared for many centuries that their greatest danger is assimilation of Jews by the host countries they live in. German Jews were very happy in Germany and did not want to move to Palestine. That was hot, where they would be constantly at war with the Arabs, whose land the Rothschilds had stolen from the Palestinians with their dirty deal with the Brits. That is, give us Palestine after you win World War I, and we will get the Jewish-dominated media in the US to whip up an anti-Hun campaign that brings the US into the war, that tips the balance, allowing the UK to win the war, which is what happened. YouTube the Balfour Declaration. Balfour, B-A-L-F-O-U-R. Educate yourselves. The Zionist Jews made a deal with Hitler, the Havara, H-A-V-A-A-R-A, or transfer agreement, to transfer German Jews from Germany to Palestine. The Jewish elite in the US organized a US boycott of German goods in 1933 when Hitler came to power, and thus made the German Jews resident enemy aliens. So Hitler put them into concentration camps, the same way the Jew Roosevelt did to the Japs in World War II. Why have American Jews assimilated so readily into American culture? I suspect because of the American lifestyle, its wealth, its freedom of expression, its fairness, its lack of anti-Semitism, etc. I suspect most of all is America's scientism, that is, its belief that the best knowledge-generating system that mankind has ever invented is science. As a result of the US being dominated by science, the US is the most scientific nation on the planet, utterly dominating the winning of the Nobel Prizes, the science Nobel Prizes. Many Jews have stopped believing in Judaism that has taught for several millennia that Jews should hate the Goy. The Talmud, which is the religious Jews' major religious document or documents, is full of expressions of vitriolic hatred against the Goy. For example, even the best of the Gentiles should be killed. Kid you not. Once millions of American Jews stopped believing in Judaism, they were no longer poisoned by the Talmud, by the anti-Goyism of the rabbis. So they got on a lot better with the Goy than their ancestors, and hence assimilated better than ever before. So I see here a strategy to wipe out the Jewish bankster Satanists, who are so hated by the Goy, who are informed of the horrible crimes against humanity of the Jewish bankster Satanists, and who know what these Satanists are preparing for the Goy. That strategy is to destroy the underlying beliefs that support their Satanist behaviours. That is, to teach these Jewish bankster Satanists that their beliefs are intellectual relics that do not belong to a modern scientific age. Thus the strategy of the Goy and non-religious Jews, who are just as much horrified by the massive crimes against humanity, including against non-religious Jews, for example, the Jewish bankster funding of Hitler to drive out Jews from Germany, should be to preach to the Jewish bankster Satanists that their beliefs are ridiculous, primitive, provincial, ancient, contemptible. As Shabbatine Frankist Satanism is wiped out in the same way that witchcraft or Negro slavery was wiped out, because people simply stop believing in such things, then the world will be a much happier place. With the Shabbatine Frankists removed, the world will become free of major wars, economic depressions will disappear, the debt enslavement of whole continents will be removed, because the paper currency debt note Ponzi schemes of the Jewish bankster Satanists will be thrown out. The politicians will then no longer be bribed, extorted and assassinated, so that they can become more honest and fairer, and hence fairer to men, so that men can get the menfair gender laws they deserve. My fear, though, is that men, especially in the US, will have to pay a very heavy price to get those menfair gender laws, namely a US civil war, killing millions of them, to remove the Jewish bankster Satanist vermin, by utterly discrediting their archaic Satanist beliefs, to be replaced by modern scientific beliefs that correspond more closely to the way the world really works. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Prof. Hugo de Garis at yahoo.com. And website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name de Garis, Masculist, MGTOW, Flyers. Ciao.